Hi, Deborah Hamilton and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Today we're talking to Dr. Jennifer Edwards. She's a leadership energy coach. And you might say, what does that mean? Oh my God, this discussion was so important about being aware of where you are, how to build boundaries, and the things that we can take responsibility for that may make our lives much more fruitful, much happier. And so I can't wait for you to hear this. Remember to like us, to give us 5 stars, to share us with people so other people can get the wonderful Why Do Pets Matter information like you do. I'd be grateful. Now let's hear what Jennifer and I talk about.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict.
Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton back from Hamilton Law Mediation, and this is the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Thank you for coming. Remember to give us 5 stars and send this to your friends once you've listened to it, because it's going to be terrific. Today's podcast is with Dr. Jennifer Edwards. She's a veterinarian leader for the last 27 years. And now she has branched off to help veterinarians through her leadership skills and her energy skills make the most of their practices and their personal lives as well. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this conversation.
I love having these conversations with these new thinkers in veterinary medicine because everyone can always learn something new. So Jennifer, what we do at the beginning before we start anything else is we ask you one question. So why do pets matter to you?
I love this question, and I've put a lot of thought into it because obviously, for not just people in this profession, but much of the population in general, pets are very important. And I think a lot of us probably come up with similar answers to that, like, the love and the security and so I started to really think about like what else? And really honing in on my experience over all these years with clients and my own pets and all of it. And really, there were a few things came to mind. One is, so a lot of people say pets give us unconditional love, and I'm not sure I agree with that. And the reason is because it is somewhat conditional, and as it should be, right? Pets they matter. They in and of themselves matter as beings, like for us to take care of and honor and respect. And if we don't do that, they don't necessarily love us. They might fear us instead, as they should. So I like to think of it instead as kind of like non-judgmental love. They create a space that we really do not experience anywhere else in life, even when we're alone. Sometimes that's the worst judgment, where we can truly be our authentic selves. We can express, we can cry, we can be naked, we can be going to the bathroom. Like it doesn't matter what we're doing, what we're saying, as long as we love them, as long as we are true to who we really are, which is the energy of pure love, regardless of outward behavior, then we create the space for them to express that which they truly are, which is the energy of pure love. And when that is present, and inside of that, by definition, it is the antithesis of judgment. it is an experience like no other. It's an experience. I don't care the closest friend, partner, loved one. We never can experience complete lack of judgment in a space because that's not the way our brains are designed. So that experience for so many people is it matters. It matters to help them feel important, to feel loved, to feel lovable, to feel worthy, to have somebody to cry to. And again, I'm an energy coach, and so I think in that way, when people have that outlet of which to express, energy is emotions are energy, energy and motion, and when that can be expressed, it gets released, and when we stuff it down, it amplifies. And so that was one of the many things that came to mind of why pets matter. And the other thing that came, again, looking at it from an energetic perspective, is they know. We know and they know. And they really do reflect back to us who we are and how we're showing up. When we're angry, if we come in the house and we're slamming cabinets, the dog's probably going to be under the table in the living room. And when we notice that, even subconsciously, we get present to like who we're being in that moment, how we're showing up. And I think that self-reflection is important. I also think that that informs how we show up for other people and then therefore the outcomes we have in our lives. And I think that really how people treat animals, how people treat pets says a lot about their humanity. So that's my long answer to your question.
I have to say that that was the one of the most thoughtful answers I've ever gotten, and I believe it's because you are um, practicing and in practice, because we all are working on the energy that we're putting out and the energy we're accepting. Um, Coach, because the fact that there's two different kinds of love, and you're right, dogs and cats can have a little judgment somewhat when you are mean to them. However, their pureness is that they're non-judgmental to us. They will forgive us no matter what. And they will continue to be that person in our life, well, that entity in our life that creates good endorphins. I mean, many years ago, all of us knew that if you pet a cat or a dog, that your heart rate went down and you felt better. Now we have peer-reviewed studies showing that that's actually what happens. So we now have the science to back up the anecdotal information that pets bring. And I think that the second piece that you brought out, which was really important, is they may not like us all the time if we do mean things, but I think they know. They know when we're having a bad day. They know when we're having a good day.
Mhm.
They're right there as excited or as calm as they need to be. So your points were just spot on for that question. So thank you. But there were so many things you said there that I just was like, wow, I was writing some notes and in your work. So you were a veterinarian for a practicing veterinarian, not that you're not practicing now, because I know you had told me before we got on the call that you're doing relief work, but you're really practicing helping veterinarians get the most out of their practice of veterinary medicine because of something that you must have experienced or chosen to learn more about. Could you let us know how that transition went from being a full-time veterinarian, owning a practice, working at a practice, and then owning a practice to where you are now helping other veterinarians?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a lifelong journey. It wasn't just like a one day I decided to pursue this path. And the Cliff Notes version is basically in college, I got a degree in psychology. My plan was to get a PhD in clinical psychology. And my life has always been very intuitively led. And most major decisions, major things I've done in life have come to me literally in a moment of like, do this, do that. And that was the same thing with becoming a veterinarian. It was just one day was go to vet school. I was a senior in college. I had not even taken biology. Like I had nothing that I needed, but I knew. And so off I went. And so while I didn't pursue a degree in psychology, an advanced degree, and I became a veterinarian. It was 100% what I was meant to do. I never lost that interest. So I've been,
Groundwork, that groundwork, right?
yes. Yeah, and I've been since I'd say probably 2007, so like 17 years, very passionately studying leadership, transformation, self-development. I mean, I've done every retreat course, book, like you name it. And because it was just part of my own journey. And as I stepped into leadership in the veterinary space, that helped me as I grew. Because, of course, like most veterinary leaders, I had no training on how to A, run a business or lead the business, because that's not the same thing. And I would go off to a weekend, I'd come back, we'd have a staff meeting, and I would share whatever concept or idea I learned that weekend. And it just became a part of my life. So after I sold my practice, a little time went by, I decided to go back, and I have multiple coach training certifications that I did as specialties in leadership and transitions, and two different types of energy coaching certifications. And I decided to take everything that I had been studying and been experiencing and to learn how to actually effectively apply it to coaching. Because just because you know something doesn't mean you know how to do it. So with all of that, now, yeah, I have been where a lot of these people have been. I've been the associate, I've been the practice owner. Um, I've been crumpled up on the floor in tears, riddled with anxiety, feeling like a failure, like burning out, like all of it. I've been there. So I know looking back, I don't know how I ever would have gotten through had I not been doing all of that study. I worked with coaches for years, like before coaching was even like a thing to do. I was working with coaches. And now, yeah, I practice very, very part-time relief work. But this is my focus. And if I can now be for someone else what all of those people were for me, and to take all of my knowledge and experience and now pay it forward to help people see things differently. We get into these states where we just everything is very narrow focused, and that's not wrong and it's not bad. It's just not going to really provide for a whole lot of uh, happiness, a whole lot of perception of possibility, a whole lot of self-advocation. And yeah, so that's how I got here. This is what I'm doing now.
I love it because it is all about that. You went through your journey in veterinary medicine with a little more of a growth mindset than what you see out there now. Carol Dweck wrote the great book on, fixed and growth mindsets. And in one, you just sort of put your head down and go and survive. And what I heard you say, which I think was fabulous, is I took some side roads while I was putting my head down and going and having all those anxieties and having those doubts and fears and everything. But I took these little exit ramps every once in a while because I knew from my study of psychology that I needed a little bit more. I needed something. And so now that you have recognized your magnificence in veterinary medicine, you've decided, I think, to take just a little pivot to make sure that you now can, as you said, beautifully pay it forward. So here
Yes.
you were, because of your underlying curriculum in college in psychology, and then your brilliant energy focused need to take care of yourself as well as others. I think that's where you're going now, where you're helping people breathe. I think it starts with the breath, right?
Well, every moment of every day of our entire life starts with breath. And
And it is not as valued as it should be. When I talk to people about conflict and how to, handle conflict, I always help them or hope to help them by saying, just breathe.
breathe. The breath is so incredibly powerful for lots of reasons. I mean, obviously, it keeps us alive, but beyond that, it's it is the one thing that is always now. There's no past, there's no future, there's no story, there's no insecurity, there's no BS, There's no my mommy didn't love me. There's no my coworker's a jerk. It's just your breath. And every moment that a person can, even for one breath, two breaths, half of a breath, just an exhale, be present and focused on that and listen, it anchors you instantly back into the present moment. And in the present moment is where all possibilities for your life, that is where your life itself exists.
It
Um,
gives you
and
the ability to make that choice.
yes, yeah. And if somebody asks you a question or you're in an exam room and a client says, so I want to know how you're going to fix, or well, I want to know why, blah, blah, blah," like, right? And before you respond,
It's
because not only
simple and so soul-filling.
it is so soul-filling, but it also provides a pause. And what I would also encourage people to think, because some people are very aware of their intuition. Like I'm a very intuitive person. I've been this way my whole life. I'm very aware of my awareness, so to speak. But I would encourage anybody listening to start to play with the idea that even if you don't resonate with those terms, that doesn't mean that they don't apply to you. It's just you're very aware, you're very intuitive. You just might not be aware of that awareness. And so when we take a breath, when we pause in just a moment, the client says, ah, or the coworker, "Ah," and we go, what's happening is you're grounding your energy, but what's also happening is you're allowing your response to flow in, not from your brain, not your brain thinking, what should I say? What should I say to her? It's allowing your higher self, your intuitive self to allow a flow of then what comes out. And what comes out typically will be more thoughtful, less reactive, or more reactive if that's what's needed in the moment, right? So the breath is hugely part of my work. One of my I call it my smaller, like less intense coach training program that I did is something called Energy Codes Coaching with Dr. Sue Morter, and it's all about what she calls central channel breathing and how this breath process literally anchors in our energy. Because what happens is we spend our day, like I imagine like little fishing lines or little balls, like throw our energy out in every direction at every client, patient, my husband, my kids, the dog, blah. And then we wonder why we're feeling frazzled. We're like
Completely depleted, right?
completely not just depleted, but like tired, but depleted of groundedness. And so we feel a bit chaotic in our being, and we think, oh, do I have ADD? Like, and some people do. I'm not poo-pooing that, but like some people don't, but they think like I just can't focus. They physically feel anxious or tense, and it's because our energy is dispersed in every way. And so again, with breath, we can learn to bring it all back onto self. And I always say, like, throw out the line and reel it in, reel all the little fishing lines. You reel all the energy that you've been throwing out onto everything. You bring it all back onto self, which people might think that sounds selfish, but it's the opposite. Because when we bring all our energy home, off of the kids, off of the coworkers, off of the clients, and then we sit and we're solid in our own being and we're grounded and we're present, then we are fully available for the other people in our lives.
And
So
fully
it's
available to make a decision at that point, because often it's all about the other person. And if you pull those lines back in, you'll recognize that you do have control, and maybe you'll have a better vision of how you're being seen in that moment as well.
exactly. So a couple of thoughts on that. So yes, like how many times have we all, like we all have experienced this, that we are in an encounter and then we leave and then we're like, oh, I can't believe I said that. Or why didn't I say that? Or I can't believe I let him get to me and I just blurted that out and I shouldn't, you know, and that's what happens when we're reactive.
When you haven't rolled that fishing line in before you answer.
Exactly. And with some of the other energy work that I do, we all experience I won't go into all the details, but essentially 2 types and 7 levels of energy. And they all have different characteristics and different associated thoughts, feelings, and actions, and therefore your outcomes. And so when you said, and I completely agree with this, when you said getting to a place where you have a choice, everything that I do, everything that I view as far as transformation, creating your life, up leveling your life, enhancing your relationships, all comes down to getting to a place where you have the awareness to cultivate a choice. And when we understand our energy, not just how we're showing up, but energy in general, we can start to consciously choose, I'm heading into this meeting. This is the outcome that I want from this meeting. What is the best way for me? I didn't say best because that's a judgment. What would be the most effective way for me to show up to this meeting in order to create that outcome? If I'm all grumpy and mad because my partner at home got me all upset this morning, there's nothing wrong with that. We all have that. But is that state, is that energy going to be the best way for me to walk into a meeting with an employee or a coworker or a client? And maybe not. So maybe I postpone the meeting, or maybe I cultivate the ability to pause at the door, take a quick check, like who is the me that's showing up? Is that going to work? And actually shift that in the moment. Or even face to face in the exam room with the client in the moment. Oh my gosh, I feel myself getting so defensive. She's really pissing me off. That's not going to work. And learn what I'm going to bring more of a different type of energy to this right now. And then
Well,
afterwards, go and be pissed off.
we in the mediation world, William Ury is one of the leaders, has always said, go to the balcony and look down. Go to the
Mm,
balcony and look down at what's happening and see if you can see yourself in the way you'd like to show up, or in a way that, is that really me? Am I showing up that way? And then when you, it's sort of like that gathering breath before you go into something that you perceive to be difficult or challenging or exciting. You just gather yourself so that you take that time. You go to the balcony and you look. I love this because it is really become, or it has really become, not it is, it has really become a bit of a challenge um, for clients to communicate with veterinarians to communicate with clients because of, um, my thought is, because animals have become so much more important to people. People are more attached to their pets than they were, say, in the 60s and 70s. Peter Weinstein, I always repeat this. If anybody's listened to another podcast, it's like my mantra. Peter Weinstein has said that once we found out really good and effective flea and tick medications, the dogs came out of the backyard into the house, and that's when the human animal bond began in earnest. It was always there, but they weren't sleeping with us. And now they're
right.
sleeping with us, and now they've become so much more than anything we could have ever hoped for in our lives, as you described at the beginning, where they really are non-judgmental of us. They're probably the only people in our lives that may not like what we did last time, may be a little fearful if we weren't ourselves, but they will still come around.
Yeah.
How do we work with veterinarians in your wonderful energy? Because it's the energy they bring in the room that really
Yeah.
will create what comes out of the room. And if you're frazzled, if you've thrown out all your fishing lines and there's nothing left, and you find one of those clients who's also thrown out all their fishing lines, so they have like this much as well, the perfect storm. How do you help in your in your work? Because I have to say, I hate the term boundaries. You have to build boundaries. And I said it's okay to build boundaries as long as you let somebody know what those boundaries are before you need to erect them. Just
Right.
erect them in the middle of a difficulty. I said, or
Right.
else it is just going to backfire on you in such a big way. I said, you need to be, as you said, really open and fluent about what you need to do. That's rolling all your lines back in and talking to yourself about what I need and being transparent about what I need from you as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on two things really, which was how to handle difficult staff or client because it's not easy. And that's not what you're taught in vet school, which is really difficult because I would say, maybe I'm just 50% of good veterinary medicine comes in communication. The other 50% is what you know, what you know. Um, but if you can't communicate it in a way that is effective for staff and client, or if when you communicate, it's not received the way you intended, not because you didn't intend it to be great, but you need, help discussing it. That, and also, I'd love to hear your take on boundaries.
Lots and lots of thoughts on all of that.
I know,
So
right? We're probably
I,
going to run out of time, but I'm hoping we can get some.
I jotted down some notes as you were talking. So where to begin? Because yes, 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 and yes. Um, let me start first with just the idea, the concept of boundaries in general. I think um, for people who have allowed themselves to be taken advantage of, who don't know how to self-advocate, who are not very well self-expressed as far as their needs, and I historically have been in that category. Conflict avoiders, like that's me as well. The idea of a boundary is a good first step, okay? Because at least it's something. Here's my boundary, like, my picket fence between your yard and my yard, and you're not allowed to cross that. However, when we start to put up fences and walls, it's somewhat of a defensive posture. And like I said, if that's the first step, if somebody's being attacked, their toxic environment, taken advantage of, their life isn't working, people are just pulling it every direction, sometimes a defensive posture needs to be the first thing that they do. Like, okay, you know what? You all just stop. I'm not taking this anymore. Like, that's the first step. However, from my point of view, and when I think about energy, we look at again, not to go into a lot of detail, but I don't like positive and negative energy. I don't use those terms. They're
I love,
judgments.
I love that.
But I use the terms catabolic and anabolic energy. Catabolic energy is more destructive. It's basically like anger, hostility, competition, uh, or guilt, victim, depression, those types of things. Not necessarily going to be long-term associated with very powerful outcomes. However, they do serve their purpose and they are needed. They are not wrong and bad. Boundaries, to me, that idea is catabolic energy. It's defensiveness. It's maybe I'm angry now. Like, no, no, oh no, you don't. You don't get to. And for a lot of people, that moving from apathy, inactivity, quiet, victim to anger, oh no, you don't, is actually a really great first step. Like, yay. So anger can actually be looked at as like a huge step in progress. However, again, long term, that's not a solution. And so the idea to me of a boundary is a lower level of energy that can be needed and helpful in the short term until a person learns, now, how do I create my life so that people are not taking advantage of me, so that I am advocating for myself, and then I don't need boundaries because it's just not a thing. They just don't get to do that anymore. Like, it's just, I just, that's not how I live. And so I don't need to have my defensive walls up because
Mutual
it's just not,
respect.
yeah, but that takes time. And so sometimes I think that first step can be, now that leads me to the next point that I wrote down is like, how do veterinarians start to cultivate how they react, how they respond? And I guess in a bigger picture, how are they showing up? Who are they in their lives?
And
The
don't lose your thought. I don't
Okay.
I don't want you to think that this is just about veterinarians because clients have to learn to do this
Oh,
too.
clients,
This is
everybody.
a general thing that everybody has to do. So anybody who's listening here, please don't think that it's only
Yes.
veterinarians who have to fix themselves, but rather because of my practice, it's everyone has to listen
100%.
to what Jennifer's going to say, because these ideas and thoughts that she's going to share with us so generously are going to help you figure out how to go into that not so great situation.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And no, and thank you for pointing that out, because I'm just so very often the
No,
podcast.
because that's what this is about. Everybody,
Yeah,
nobody wants to blame anybody for anything, because everybody who walks in the room has the same chance to bring the energy.
I absolutely agree. And in fact, I don't just coach veterinarians. Like I actually I have a lawyer who's actually a client and a realtor. Like I coach outside of the veterinary profession as well.
Good
So
for you.
yes,
And they are crazy, those lawyers, but I digress. Go ahead.
well, um, no, what I say and what I speak, what I believe, what I teach is at the level that people are human beings. It has nothing to do with what you actually do. I just tend to speak a lot to veterinarians because I'm a veterinarian.
You have the
So,
lived experience that gives such credibility at that point, because it really
yeah,
is important. And I asked the question sort of loadedly, so I want to apologize, because I
it's
said
okay.
conflicts, but it could be conflicts with anyone that you walk into.
Right.
And your energy work helps people understand what they are walking in with, not necessarily
Yes.
to.
Well, and that's really all that matters.
Yep.
So here's the next part of what I was going to say. For anybody listening who wants to affect a change in your life, and again, it does not matter if it's with a client, a coworker, an employer, your partner, your children, your friends, I don't care who it is. Life is interaction with other people. It needs to be this is the part that's almost like non-negotiable if you want to create changes in your life. It needs to be about you. It cannot be, as long as it's about the other people, we call that victim mentality. And that's not meant to be a derogatory term. It's a way of thinking. And the way you know if you were in victim mentality, and trust me, I go there too. I was actually there last night. um, is when you are shaming, blaming, or complaining. Shaming is basically like blame turned onto self. As long as anything in your life is because of him, her, circumstance, they, anybody, anything, you are giving away your power and not taking full responsibility for your life. That is required in order to start to cultivate self-awareness, start to cultivate how am I showing up? How should I show up? Or how can I show up to have a different result? And all of this takes practice.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I talk a lot with a colleague who looks a lot more of like physical and nutrition, Aaron Shaw, and he always talks about you can't start practicing your free throw on the free throw line in the championship game. You've got to practice it in the gym for months and months and months, and then when you get to the championship game and you're on the line, you've got your free throw. So in the moment when you're walking into a difficult situation is not the time to start being like, oh my God, like what did she say? How do I? No, it's it's making the choice that you want to cultivate inside of yourself a powerful life, a great life, owning responsibility, looking at all the hard crap in you that's making you reactive or making, oh, why can't I just do this? Why can't I do that? Why do I always, why can't she? Did like, I've been there. We've all been there. And it takes a conscious personal choice to do the work, whether it's working with a coach like me or going to retreats or reading books and all of it, or all of the above, is when you start to little by little build the muscle. Like you don't walk into a gym on day one and pick up, 50-pound dumbbells in each hand and start doing curls. Like it doesn't work. Then not only would you get hurt, you can't even pick them up. But no, you walk in and you say, okay, I think I can curl 7 pounds. Oh, now these are too light. I'm going to go to 10 pounds. And you build the muscles. Well, transformation, self-development, leadership is the same way. It's little by little understanding concepts, seeing how it applies to you, noticing things about yourself. It's all doable. It's actually all a lot easier than people think, but it has to start with the willingness and the willingness to do the work and the willingness to take responsibility.
Oh, I love that. I mean, Jennifer, it's so important for us as people who are working around pets, near pets, with pets, people with pets, or take care of pets, that we understand that what we bring to the table, we have to really know what we bring to the table, and we want to have. So how am I going to say this? We have to want to know what we're bringing to the table, not what we think we're bringing to the table, but also what's being seen from us by others. Because I might think I am the most jovial, wonderful person in the universe, and somebody will say, "You are so intimidating. I can't even believe that." That actually happened to me. And I went, wow,
Too.
wow. And so I think I can't believe we've run out of time. We have to do this again because I think the energy piece is such a hard concept for scientists to
Yes.
to understand, but quite frankly, it's how we tick. That energy that we bring to the table or to work every day or to everything that we look and see and explain to ourselves is based on the energy we are feeling that moment. And you're absolutely right. You have to take accountability, responsibility. And when I give courses on resolving conflict, I always say the only one you can control in that conflict is you.
Absolutely. That's all that there is. Anything else is just an illusion. And that illusion is what will create feeling stuck, feeling anxious, feeling powerless, depression, resignation, burnout. Um,
And being blamed for everything. Oh, everybody blames me for everything. And I always say, that is so frustrating when that happens. That is like the most frustrating thing. And what can we do to take a look at what occurred, how it occurred, and how might we have handled it a little bit differently? And I'm sure you do the same thing. It's sort of like just empathizing because it's so important to have someone when you're talking about this stuff and having to either shift energy or understand energy or change energy if you can when you're in a situation, having empathy that yeah, you lost your shit. Believe me, I've been there.
yeah. Yeah. And understanding how that happens, but not because it's the other people who keep blaming me, but how do I create that I keep getting blamed? And that's a paradigm shift for a lot of people. That's hard because the first thing the mind wants to do is say, oh, so everything's my fault. No, 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 no. Taking responsibility is not taking fault. Those are completely different ideas. Fault is disempowering. Fault is it's just it's just another
Destructive.
accusation. It's just
It,
another accusation.
it's destructive to
Responsibility. What's that? I'm sorry.
I said it's destructive
Yes.
to your person.
Right. As opposed to taking responsibility is the most powerful gift a person can bestow upon themselves. Scary? Yes. Powerful? Yes. And then the other thing I was going to say, and one of the reasons I love working with veterinarians is because what you said is exactly right. For a lot of people, when we talk about concepts like energy, it's like it's kind of like woo woo, like what are you talking about? And they don't, it's our minds, we're not taught in this society from a young age to start to understand our own energy. You actually don't have energy. We are energy. Everything is energy. Our desk, our chair, our everything. So energy is who you are. You are already experiencing energy. However, our minds, and especially scientists, and the way I see myself as a veterinarian is as an applied scientist. I'm not in the lab. I don't need all the receptors. I just want to know how to use the science. And our minds need something to wrap their head around. And so what I love in my work is whether I'm teaching or I'm working with clients one-on-one, is I like to take, and I put this in air quotes, I like to take the woo and make it logical. I like to make it so that people can understand it as a concept and actually apply it into their lives so that they can make a difference. Because I do agree with you. Sometimes when things are too like floaty up here, for a lot of people, it just sails right by because it's just not the way we're used to talking in Western culture. And that's okay.
I know.
So that's,
I love that because the more we learn about what we take into something, I have this thing that I say I work to get it right over being right. I said nobody's going to be right. We're all going to get it right. And we're going to get it right because we're here, so in my world, for the pet. Because
yes.
why do pets matter? We're going to get it right for the pet. And let's take a step back. Let's take accountability and responsibility, not let's not feel like we have to be the smartest person in the room, because sometimes the smartest person in the room does more listening than talking.
Yes. And I love that when you get it right in a situation where you're involved, like conflict, multiple people, multiple entities, if it's an animal, getting it right is where everybody wins, both parties and the pet. It's a win-win-win-win situation, which is actually, from an energetic standpoint, a much higher level of energy. When people are in the state where they need to be right, is actually a lower, less productive
Yeah.
level of energy. So I
Well,
love
we are going to be talking about this for a long time
that.
because
Yes.
I'm a big energy person. When I realized that I could control my own energy, probably about the time I got out of litigation and got into mediation, which is 12 years ago or 15 years ago, um, I recognized that I had to help people find the way to find the outcome they really wanted, as opposed to having someone tell them the outcome they really wanted,
Mm,
because you're giving away your power when you're deciding to let a judge or someone else decide for you what's wrong. You really can take a step back and, as you said, take responsibility and work together to find the best outcome. And most of the time, and I'll say this with all love and affection to all the attorneys listening, we don't do a really good job of representing our clients' interests in collaboration. We
mm.
have it in advocacy, and I get that because I was a lawyer and I was an advocate. However, I think that if we took a little bit more time figuring out how to be collaborative, we might be in a better place. I can't believe we are at time because I want to talk.
No.
We're going to have Jennifer 2.1, 2.0, 2.0, right? Soon, I promise you, everyone, because
Yeah.
this energy information is so important. Jennifer, let them know how to get in touch with you, because I'd love my listeners whose interests have been piqued to find you to learn more. And of course, they'll learn more when we do another one of these. But this is such an important, much overlooked, much maybe poo-pooed part of science and life, but really so invaluable. That's why I'm so glad you're here.
Yes. Well, I love being here and I definitely would love to come back. But yeah, so anybody can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook. It's at Dr. Jennifer Edwards, doctor with a DR. But my website is probably one of the best places, and that's drjenniferedwards.com, drjenniferedwards.com. And I invite everybody to download my free ebook. That's right, pops up right when you go to my website. And it's the book is about actually creating the context of happiness for your life. Happiness is not necessarily an emotion. Like, yeah, you can say I feel happy, but happiness actually can create a context of the way a person can learn to view their life so that it becomes the default to which they return. So it's kind of like about remembering that you're happy even when you're not happy so that you return there. And that's what my book is about. And I invite anybody who's interested to download that.
Oh, I am so glad you've been here. I'm so glad you brought this, because this has changed my life for the past 15 years, and obviously has changed your life as well. So together we can bring little bits of snippets and row the boat with more people in this direction as much as we can. Dr. Jennifer Edwards, thank you for being on Why Do Pets Matter today.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
And everybody, kiss your horse. your dog, your cat, your bird, your snake, your lizard, whatever it is, your turtle, your box turtles. I love those box turtles for me because all pets matter. And until next time, this is Deborah Hamilton. Don't forget to like us, to share us, to give us 5 stars so other people can hear this wonderful information like we received today from Dr. Edwards. So please share it. And until next time, take care.